Hello, guys. I hope everyone's had an amazing weekend just gone. I'm here today for the live interview with Marina Pearson. Marina's a mum's mental health coach. She's the author of a best-selling book, Goodbye, Mr. X, as well as The Joy of Being. She's the host of the Joy of Being podcast. And Marina, you've been featured in the Huffington Post, Guardian, Daily Mail, Sky, ITV, and This Morning. Marina's here today to talk to us about breathing space for mums. Really, how can we create headspace? What are the benefits of headspace? And what's the difference between the state of meditation and the difference between that and meditating for hours on end? So, Marina, it's amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're so welcome. Hi, everyone, if you're here.
How has your week or weekend been?
What day are we on?
I know. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Sure, actually, what day we're on. It's Monday, right?
I believe it's Monday, yeah. Today is Monday.
It should be the same as every single other day that has kind of gone by in the last 6 weeks. So, yeah.
It's the never-ending summer holiday, isn't it? Yeah. The days are kind of blending into one long day. And Marina's also the proud mum of a little warrior called Leo.
Yeah. He might video from as we go.
And Leo is also a student in the Warrior Academy. How's it going, sir? Good to see you.
My white belt.
You've done what?
I have my white belt.
You got your white belt. So Leo is actually a student, our first ever student at the Warrior Academy in Spain. So he completed his uniform test, sent in his uniform test, and we posted him a uniform, which came all the way from the UK. The UK team sorted all of that out. So it's super cool. Well done, sir. Amazing job. And so he is diligently practicing his techniques and following the classes along with Warrior. So that's awesome to hear. Well done, mum. So Marina, tell me a little bit about what it is you're doing right now. For those parents who have not met you or seen any of your previous lives with me before, if you could just give a brief kind of background as to what you're doing right now.
Sure. So my why really for doing what I do is to stop mums suffering unnecessarily. And when that starts happening, that makes a massive, massive difference in the family unit. And I'm not saying it's not the same for dads. For any dad that's watching this, I'm not saying that's not the same, but I've just felt really cool to working with mums and helping them see that there is a quieter space that they can live in that can be really helpful in terms of dealing with their kids and dealing with their work and dealing with life really in general. And my why really is for us as mums to influence the next generation with the understanding I share. But also, I know as a mum who works and who runs a business and so forth and so on, that I'm not saying in today's society, and I think there's a level of that somehow, and I've seen it a lot on social media recently, where there's still an expectation that we may be placing on ourselves or that society places on us, that we need to be all things to all people. So the cleaner, the wife, the worker, and especially mums that work. So and as a single mum who does work, who needs to look after her son and who also wants to be able to give back and look after myself as well, I have been on this massive journey to really understand what it takes to live from a really calmer, more peaceful space, so that I have the headspace to respond to life in real time. And by that, I mean what's needed in the moment. So as a martial artist, I'm sure you understand that, right? There are different things that you know how to do, but depending on the moment and how present you are to that moment, you will use what comes through. And it's really about that. It's about falling back into the present moment and actually spending more of that time in life versus from a place of thinking life or figuring it out, just living in it. And it's a very different way of living, one that I didn't even know was available to me until I started sharing what I do with my clients. Yeah.
And the way you would describe that way of living would be living in the present moment, or it would be headspace?
Yeah,
Purely
more
headspace.
of the time. So I would say that there's a massive correlation, and this is really interesting to me. So any of you moms listening to this, between feeling guilty and how much time you spend in your head versus actually in the present moment. So there's a massive correlation between being present here right now and how much guilt you feel. We often think that guilt is something that is a byproduct of being a parent. But actually what I've come to see is it's a byproduct of not being present. It doesn't matter whether you're a parent. Guilt does not discern whether you're a parent or not. And there is this fallacy that I've come to see around, well, actually, now that you're a mother, now there's this mum guilt thing. Everybody else is mum guilting, so I'm going to mum guilt too. And in actual fact, what I've come to see is that actually it's just an indication of where our thinking has gone. It has nothing to do with whether or not we're good parents or not. It's got everything to do with whether we've just popped out of the present moment and we've gone somewhere other than being here right now.
Can you give me some examples of mum guilt? That's a good term, mum guilt. Can you give me some?
I'm sure anyone listening to this will understand it. It looks something like this.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of create in a scenario, like, let's just say for a moment, let's imagine for a moment, we're on lockdown.
Imagine that.
Imagine. And we have all of these things that we need to get done. Work. We've also got to make sure that our kids are looked after, make sure that, maybe, mums that are watching this, you're a single mum or your husband works away, whatever, you've got to homeschool. Not only that, you've also got to start thinking about, making money and so whatever, all of these roles that we play, all of these hats that we have. And it gets to the point that you are, well, either two versions of this. The first one, like mine yesterday, which is like, my head gets so full and then boom, I just go blah, and and it's the last straw, because finally you're like, I've been hearing my son ask me for the 50th thousand time whether he can do something, and I'm like, no. And then you kind of snap at them, or you shout at them, or you do something that you regret. And then starts the entire cycle of, I shouldn't have done that. What kind of parent am I? I'm so bad. I'm so sorry. I should never have said that. I feel awful. Why did I go into this? My poor son or my poor daughter, they didn't mean it. I feel so awful about myself. Oh my God, my mother was right. They were all right. I'm such a bad parent. And you'll have your own version of this, but do you see what starts to happen?
Completely. And even more now, right? Where there's so much more pressure coming in from every angle on how you're supposed to be as a parent, what you're supposed to do. And
right. And then we look at that, we're comparing ourselves, and then we're like, oh my God, she's like baking pies and homeschooling, and I'm not. Oh my God, what does that say about me as a parent? Oh my wow. Oh, well, I must be an awful parent. So that we jump to that conclusion of, I'm a really bad parent or mum or person. And that's what we jump to versus going, well, hang on a minute. Is that really true?
Yeah, definitely.
Or is it that I've just popped out of the present moment for a bit?
Right.
And we've overlooked this fact because our thinking is completely and utterly 100% invisible. I don't know about you, but I don't see my thoughts. They're invisible to me. And so it's really...
you only see them through the sort of actions manifested from your kind of thoughts, right?
Right. So it's super easy for us to tune into the radio station of guilt, to tune into the radio station of beating ourselves up that we're not enough. and thinking that whatever we're thinking is actually true if we're overlooking it. And so, you know, I know that most mums struggle with guilt because they don't realize that in actual fact what's really happening is that they've just overlooked that they actually have just gone off somewhere and they're not in the present moment. Because, I mean, based on what I've just shared with you, where was I? Was I here with you in this moment with you? I might have been there physically, but was I here with you in this moment? No, I was off thinking about how awful I was as a parent and what my mum would say, or she's not even here anymore, or, you know, that my ex-husband in that moment when he said such a thing was right. I am that awful person that people think I am. Oh my God. And then we go into shame.
Right.
Yeah.
What I find quite interesting is when you're falling into that moment of guilt, a lot of the time you're referencing back to how other people are either spoke about you or something they said in the past, which maybe kind of reinforce that guilt feeling. Is that right?
Well, you'll have your own version of this. Mine might be that. But I think really what guilt comes down to is beating yourself up about something that happened in the past that you regret that you did. That's what it boils down to. But the past has just been done. Like, you can't go back and fix it. It's done. What we can do is learn from it and go, oops, I did that thing again. But the thing that happens is versus it taking lightly, we go into that whole, I'm going to beat myself up about this.
Yeah.
And what that does, it stops creating the headspace that you're actually really desiring to be able to respond to the moment. So some mums that I've worked with have been in that for years and they haven't even realized. They just think it's completely and utterly normal that this is how it is for everybody. So I'm just assuming that this is how I'm supposed to live. This is how I've always lived. This is how I'm supposed to live. I speak to other mums, they feel exactly the same. So I must put up with this for life until I am no longer a mother. But unfortunately, that ain't going to happen because you've asked, you know, you're in that role. So it might be normal, but it's not natural.
Yeah.
The difference between something being normal because we've just taken it on as something that like everybody's up to. So, all right, I'm up to that too, right? Versus it being natural. Is that natural? Is that natural for us to keep beating ourselves up? Is it natural for us to, how can we not be enough? Like, when I think about nature, or I've been on safaris before, and I love nature programs, and I see the intelligence that exists between the mother and the cubs, and there is some intelligence there as a force. I don't think there are any animals questioning whether or not they're doing a good enough job, right? So we have this gift that we've been given, which is this gift of thought. But if we misuse it, if we don't know how to use it properly, it gets us into all sorts of trouble.
Yeah. Really interesting. We had Mary Williams on recently. I don't know if you've met her before, and she spoke about something which was quite similar to what you were saying, in terms of you may go through that moment as a parent where you say something you feel like you shouldn't have, and then you feel this sense of guilt which lingers, and it then turns into shame. And one of the things she encourages parents to do is to apologize to their children if they do that, right, and to be completely transparent. And she says that if you don't do that, you're actually doing more harm than good, because you're almost painting this perfect picture, which is impossible for them to grow into. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense to me to do that. Now, I've seen an amazing, like, I'll give you a scenario of what I'm seeing with my Leo. And my Leo and me, we fight like cats and dogs. Right? It's not peaceful and it's not tranquil all of the time. But there is that what I'm seeing from him is something quite incredible, which is I have enough space in my head now where I can go, I'm going to walk away from this conversation right now and I need to take a breather. I'll be back, but I'm going to calm down. So that's one of the things that I've noticed I do. The other thing I notice I do, if I do go in, because I noticed that with Leo, and I now say to him, Crazy Boy's back. I'm not going to speak to Crazy Boy. I'm going to walk away until Leo comes back. So what's happened there is I distinguish now between Crazy Boy that I can't speak to because nothing's going to go in, to Leo. So he understands that now there's a difference between Crazy Boy, that when he's all caught up in his head and he's like going through his own little thought storms. And I said, have you calmed down? Once you've calmed down, we can have a conversation. Are you there yet? Yes, I am. And then I'll go back into that conversation and he'll get all caught up again. And I said, no, not ready yet.
That's really interesting you're kind of personifying that character that he's becoming when he's feeling frustrated or angry or upset.
Right.
Exactly. And then that makes it so much more visual for him, right? So much easier to understand as a child to kind of separate the two.
And so he does the same to me. He's like, Crazy Lady's
really?
back. Yeah. So
that's brilliant.
He's personified me as Crazy Lady. And I'm like, oh God, I've gone back into Crazy Lady mode. And so we have this little joke now. And he notices that. Now, I want to share something here. This wasn't a technique I learned. This wasn't something that I took out of a book and thought, oh, great, I'm going to try that. It just happened. There was a moment where this new idea popped into my head to share that with him. And so one of the things that I'm noticing about more headspace, and we've kind of talked about like the consequences of not having it, right? Which is we feel awful, we spiral down, we disconnect from our kids, we disconnect from the self, the real who we are. We make all sorts of weird and wonderful decisions when we're caught up in our clutter. I mean, imagine for a moment that your house is completely cluttered all of the time. And we think we do live in a house, right? But the house we're constantly living in is up here or in here. So we have two places we can live in. We can live up here, we can live in here. But our physical space is in the house. But where we perceive from is up here. This is where we really live. So that's all that's ever going on, right? Like this. We have an environment and then we create the experience from here. But we can also live more of the time from here, from this place. And this place has so much wisdom to offer us. It has so much intelligence to share with us. But it's really difficult to hear it when there's a lot of clutter going on. Like it's really like I cleaned up my space yesterday. I spent 4 hours cleaning up the top part of my space. I'd left it for about 6 weeks. It was looking pretty nasty, right? Like I'm pretty house proud only when people come over, right? So nobody's coming over to my house anytime soon. So I've been living it quite a while. And I got to the point I was like, I can't live like this anymore. So I got my marigolds on and I went for it. And this out, like in the evening, I'm like, oh my God, all this space. How amazing. And I can find everything. Everything has order. And I'm able to see where everything is. Really difficult to see what's right in front of you when you're really cluttered. Now, your example, Sebastian, and what you've done with your business in the last 6 or 7 weeks could never have been done from a cluttered mind. Could never have been done from a cluttered mind. You just saw opportunity. You were like, something needs to get done. Let's go and do it. There was maybe some anxiety that you went through, or maybe, but the point to this is what I see in you is this capacity to see through that and to move forward regardless. And that's what's available to us when we step away from the habitual thinking that we have and step into this place of heart and the wisdom that's available to us from that place, the wisdom that I see you moving forward with, the creative ideas that show up that you move forward with, the way in which you approach the business, even the way in which you approach your daughter, all of this is already inbuilt. The challenge that we're all up against is that we constantly listen to this thing up here and live from here versus living from here. So what I have found, the more quiet I've become, is that I have more access to the intelligence that already exists. And as a result of that...
This intelligence, you would call that emotional intelligence?
So I don't want to get too woo-woo about this, but I might do.
Because I know a lot of people would have explained it by now as emotional intelligence, but it's almost like you're avoiding that word.
No, this goes beyond that. So I'm either going to go into a really... Let me go into the story.
I'm ready, Marina. Let's do it. Let's go in.
So when I was pregnant with Leo, like I'd been doing some, since about the age of 20, and I'd gone into doing, I got curious about stuff that was probably what a 20-year-old wouldn't get curious about. Like I was going through a really, really bad time. I just I had a suicidal episode. I'd attempted to commit suicide. I was taking lots of drugs. I've got a bit of a colourful past. And I spent 6 or 7 months at home with my parents at the age of 22, which for somebody like me, that was like a sentence. But what did happen was I got curious about books and growth, and I started reading spiritual books. Anyway, one of the things that I started to sort of realize was that there was more beyond what I could see. That was something that I started to sort of realize. And when I got pregnant with Leo, I had already been on this journey for a while. I mean, I got pregnant with him for 6, 7 years, 38. So I'd been on this journey for about 8 years. And I'd heard about we are all one. I kind of knew that. It was banded around in the spiritual circles and it sounded nice. I just didn't really get it. Until I had this massive epiphany, like this aha moment, realization, call it what you will. Leo must have been, I was 3 months pregnant with this little munchkin, and I suddenly had this new thought pop into my head, which was, what's creating my son? What's creating him? Because I'm not. I'm just going around my day, just doing what I need to do. But there's something inside that's actually creating him. His nose, his ears, his eyes, his teeth, his tongue. All of that's being done. I don't have to worry about that. It's a done job. And it suddenly occurred to me, I was like, oh, there's an energy that's creating him. And I just suddenly had this moment where I was like, oh, wow, he's made of this intelligence. He's God. Now, I'm not talking about God, the religious Bible type God. I'm talking about an energy that created all things. So it then occurred to me, oh, wow, that's just not him. That's me. That's you. That's everybody. We've all been created in exactly the same way. And then I was like, oh, wow, we are all one. And then it went beyond that. It went to, it's the same energy that created nature, that created the moon, the stars, the sea, the sun, the trees. We're not separate from nature. That was something that I really got to see. And so if we're not separate from nature, then how can we not be made up of this intelligence? That's the intelligence I'm talking about, that we are, and that comes through to give us these new ideas and creative solutions and, fun moments like the one that Leo and I have with Crazy Lady and Crazy Boy. That's because in actual fact, if you think about the word creative, what it's really pointing to is creation. Leo? Okay, no worries. What you?
No, not these.
Oh, he wants a blank piece of paper. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, you asked, and I had to share that story.
That was brilliant. Really, really insightful, and adds a lot of clarity around, the way that emotional intelligence isn't quite enough to describe that for you.
And even when I'm describing it, it doesn't do it justice. Because there's so much intelligence in nature. There's a fish at the bottom of the ocean that creates this incredible mandala to attract its mate. Spends 7 days doing it, and it's just perfect. It's just nuts. Trees, when a tree is sick, they send minerals and water to its roots. They come together as a community and send a whole bunch of minerals and waters to the trees that need it. When a plant needs sun, it turns to it. There are so many examples I could go on, but that just gives you, that's the type of intelligence, that's the type of intelligence I'm talking about.
No, definitely. Yeah, I can completely understand that. Very interesting. So, within that, then you're kind of yeah. Where do we go from there? That wasn't in the script, Marina.
No, sorry. I can. I'm okay, now what?
I'm not sure what to ask next. So I was going to dive into your philosophy.
Sure.
And your take on this time under lockdown, if that is possible.
Absolutely. So I know there's a lot of fear, and a lot of resistance, and a lot of uncertainty. And I don't want to belittle that, because I know that a lot of people actually have suffered, are suffering, and have had the virus, or know of someone that has had the virus. I don't want to belittle that at all. But I also know that there is a way to transform that fear, which is to lean in. And by leaning in is to do the very thing that we're fearful of. So, and I'm going to give you a very practical example of what I'm talking about. So for many years, being Leo's mom, I don't like playing. I don't like getting on the ground to play with him, play trains and that sort of thing. I love playing games with him. I can sit there and play a board game, no problem. But when it comes to playing with his trains or playing hide and seek, and none of that really inspires me too much. But I could go out and play football, or there are certain things that I vibe with, and there are other things as a mum that I really don't. But I also get that what he's really asking of me is to connect. And that's his time for connection with me, is to play. That's how they play. That's how they make sense of the world, and so forth. So I get that. And but I've really struggled with it. It's something that I've really gone, no, resistance. And then the other day I was like, stop it. Why are you doing that? Why just not get on the floor and play with him? What would happen if you did that? The end of the world's not going to end. So I did. And I've been doing it ever since. And what's come out of that is noticing when I go into my story about how play is this or how play is that. But what's happening is that I'm actually creating a deeper connection with Leo because we're doing it. So that's just a really practical example. So my relationship to Leo has massively transformed during this time. It's been hugely transformative because I've decided that this time was going to be transformative for me. because I've lent into a lot of my fears. I've lent into a lot of my doubts. I've lent into all of the things that I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this time count. And so I'm not saying, like, there's lots of posts and different things around, well, should you be productive during this time or should you not be productive at time? I don't, to me, that conversation is I don't even want to enter into that conversation, because you'll do whatever makes sense to you during this time. But I decided to make this time transformative and make it count. So, and that to me means leaning into the things that I'm resisting and that I'm fearful of. So that's just one example. The way I'm also seeing this is any issue that you were having before this was going on, emotional, mental, any kind of thought patterns that were going on before before lockdown, have just been massively highlighted to you. So if you ever had a story around, I don't have enough time, well, guess what? That story has just been the gift of time massively amplified for you.
Yeah.
If you had a story around, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, that story has been massively amplified for you during this time. If you had a story of no boundaries, well, guess what? That story has been massively amplified for you and is going to be showing up everywhere.
Yeah.
So we can look to the lockdown as the reason. Or what I've found to be even more inspiring or transformative is to go, okay, well, if this is an amplifier and it's highlighting a lot of my old thinking, how cool is that I get to see that and I can actually now have a choice to kind of go, okay, I'm willing to either challenge what I'm thinking or I'm willing to see through that. And that's why fear isn't an invitation to step back. Fear is an invitation to step forward, and it's an invitation to growth, and it's an invitation to insight and transformation.
Totally agree with that. Right. For me, fear is, I've done a lot of things that would, but that have scared me in the past, with various different sports, and martial arts definitely being one of them. And fear for me has always been a signal more than anything, right? A signal of something you need to learn to overcome. Ultimately, whatever it is that you're fearful of is telling you an awful lot about yourself. It's an amazing tool, fear. It's giving that signal. If you can overcome that, then I think one of the things we teach our students is that if they're able to overcome whatever fear they've got, they kind of see this exponential growth in their character, right? And it's stepping out of your comfort zone. It's a tool, right? But it's a process you learn.
Well, it's also having a deeper understanding of what the feelings are letting you know about. So a lot of the mums that I've spoken to recently, especially in the area of change, because our ego is here to keep us safe, doesn't want change, doesn't like it, won't have a bar of it. That's why resistance shows up, right?
But that fear and ego is so, I kind of find they're so closely linked. Do you know what I mean?
I think they are the same.
Yeah.
I think that they're the same. And so we, especially us, when we do change work, right? Because you effectively do change work. And what I've seen in that is first of all, ego doesn't like change, so not going to have a bar of that. I'm going to just blame other things outside of this situation. So I'm going to blame COVID. I'm going to blame the lockdown. I'm going to blame those sorts of things because that's easier. I don't have to look at what I have to then change, because ego doesn't like change, doesn't like it at all. And so when we go to a place of fear, a lot of us think that that's a signal to stop. It's a signal to step back and not lean in. It's a signal to not change. But over the years, I've come to see it as an invitation to have a quieter mind.
Totally.
Not to, because actually what you're going to do is you're going to see through a lot of your own thinking in that, in the process. And so you can wait. You can wait. Waiting is a choice. But I've also found that acceleration of the life that you want as a mom can happen by taking action, and as a result, you'll get some insights about that. You'll get some real time feedback from life that will share that with you. But the other thing is this, and I heard it the other day and I loved it, which is, why would you want a sledgehammer sign, like a sledgehammer coming straight through you? Because there are signs, right? So I don't know about you, but when I was really struggling, I had sort of what could be considered as postnatal depression, and I carried on working. I was going to push through, but actually I wasn't listening, and so what happened is I got postnatal depression to just stop. But I didn't have to go. I didn't have to go that far. I could have just gone, okay, I'm reading the signs. I think I need to just stop. There are always signs along the way that are giving us clues as to the direction that our heart wants to go in, but then our mind takes over and goes, no, what are you doing? Don't do that. Who are you to do that? And that can cost us money financially. I mean, I've had some crazy conversations with mums recently who, through their own habits of thinking and their clutter, it's cost them like 17K a year. Or it's cost them 10K a year, because they're not aware that their decision making from a place of clutter isn't very helpful. Decision making from a place of fear, decision making from a place of guilt, decision making. Let's just take decision making from a place of guilt, right? If we are led our lives by guilt, so we do something, we're shameful of that, then we want to overcompensate, right? That's the solution. Oh, I feel better if I overcompensate. So then we might totally overcompensate our children. That's not necessarily the best thing for them, because we are being run by guilt thinking. And so guilt thinking or angry thinking or overwhelming thinking is part of being human. But the question here isn't that you don't experience it, because we will, but is it running your life? Is it running your life? And are you making decisions based on those feelings? Because if you are, then that's something to look at. Because I don't know about you, but I don't make sound decisions when I am in fear, pissed off, angry, upset. I've made some really piss poor decisions. I don't know if I can, I've just sort of gone there a little bit. I've made some really piss poor financial decisions out of greed. I've made some really piss poor relationship decisions out of sheer jealousy or insecurity. And what I'm really realizing this, and over time, is that I can wait. I don't need to make a decision right there and then. And I can notice when my head is full, it's probably like not the best time to make a decision. I'm going to wait. I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to reflect on that. Versus, going, actually, okay, no, I'm not going to act on that. I mean, I've sent emails to people when I've been annoyed that I really shouldn't have done. I should have waited. So, guiding our lives by feelings, I don't think is a very good GPS system. The best GPS system that I know is the one that's already inside of us, guiding us from moment to moment. But if we're too full, we won't hear it. And we'll keep on ignoring it, and we'll keep on ignoring it, and we'll keep on ignoring it until a sledgehammer comes along and goes, you weren't listening. And the thing is the sledgehammer usually looks like health issues. It usually looks like chronic fatigue. It usually looks like, because one of the things that I've realized, having gone through my own health journey, is when wisdom has nowhere else to go, it manifests itself in the body. It has to. Then we wake up and go, oh, wow, okay. what's going on. It has nowhere else to go. It's been talking to you, but you've just been going, no, I'm going to carry on, just doing everything that I've always done. And I'm not here to berate anybody, by the way. I've done this myself, and I know how painful it can be. I'm just here to share with you an awareness that I now have that might be useful and helpful, and hopefully this is resonating. If there's something that you know that you've needed to change for a while, I would invite you to do it during this time, because we're not going to come out in the world in the same way as we went in. People are talking about going back to normal, Sebastian, but I don't know about you. We're not going back to the way things used to be.
Yeah, I think if you're hanging on to the hope that things will change very, very quickly back to normal, back to where they were, I think you are giving yourself a harder time. I think if you can, in some ways, try and embrace what's going on, then you're going to find it easier. But I think it's easy to do that if you're in a very poised position without that mental clutter, when you've got that headspace. And if you don't have that headspace, it becomes infinitely harder to do, right? So that kind of brings me on to, from a very practical side, what can parents do? We've got a great question here. What techniques can you give to help us stay present? What kind of practical advice can you give that a parent can watch this, walk away with a few things which they can kind of encourage themselves to do each day?
Right. Well, I'm going to put a massive spanner in your works, and I'm going to say I don't have any. And the reason why I don't have any is because my philosophy on this, and this is quite different to what most people will talk about. I can go online right now, and I can go onto Google, and I can go, techniques to calm me down. And you will find masses of those. Like tips and tricks, go to Google if that's what you're looking for. I heard it the other day and I loved it. If you want a tip, why would you just want a tip of the pen? You could have it all. Anyway, I just had to do that because I heard that the other day. I loved it because it's really my philosophy, right? Like, so why does that make sense to me? I used to work with a method. How do you stay present? Love it. Well, let's go into what I shared with you before, which is the difference between meditating and the state of meditation. So I've practiced yoga for years. I started when I was about 23, and I've been off and on with it for years and years and years. And I thought that going to the yoga class was what was calming my head down. And what I realized is there were some times that I would go to yoga and I would come out sometimes frustrated. I would come out sometimes pissed off. I would sometimes come out. And even though I felt my body felt more vital, it felt like I had more energy, stuff that goes on in the body, right? The feeling of better wasn't coming from the yoga practice. And I remember speaking to my mentor about this and going, well, how can it not? And he goes, well, you've just made a correlation between this and this, and that being the case. I'm like, what? And he's like, reflect on that. And that's all he said. He's just go and reflect on that. I was like, okay. And so I did reflect on it. And I started to notice what he was saying was true, because as I said, there were days that I would go and also something that also started to see in the yoga community that I was part of, most of the people that would go to the yoga classes were completely neurotic. And I was like, well, this is really interesting. So if it's not the thing that I'm doing, what is going on? Now, as I said, I used to offer techniques and tools through my coaching practice, and I don't anymore. And I remember reading a book where I was like, clarity. And I was expecting at the end of each chapter, this is what you do to get clarity. There were no how-tos in the book. I was like, well, this rubbish book. Like, why would I be reading this how-to thing? Where's my how-tos? And I reread it, and it hit me. It was like, when I look to a how-to, where am I looking? Am I looking inside or am I looking out? And I realized when I'm looking for a how-to, I'm looking out. It's taking me away from looking in. So that was the first thing I realized. The second thing I realized is we're designed to have our system updated all of the time. So, you know, when you prick your finger or you cut yourself, or what happens?
You're in pain, you react.
But what happens? Does it heal on its own? Do we need to do it? Yeah, right? Our state of mind is exactly the same. It does it on its own. We just haven't been told that. We actually have a psychological system that's doing its job 24/7 all of the time. And it's very simply this. The power of thought creates a feeling. We experience that feeling and it repeats. That's all that's ever going on. We're taught about the respiratory system. We're taught about the immune system. We're taught about the solar system. We're taught about all of these amazing things. But what we're never talked about was the psychological system that we have. And when I say it updates, we have a capacity for insight, aha moments, realizations. What I share isn't how to, it's implication based. It's actually an understanding of how the mind works versus how to make the mind work better. Do you see the distinction between those two things?
Yeah, I think I do.
So one is to say, as I shared this with you the other day, if I were to share with you how a sliding door opens and shuts, and you come to a door and you know that it's a sliding door, and oh yeah, Marina taught me how to open a sliding door. You open and shut it, no problem, right?
Yep.
But if you come to that door and you don't know how a sliding door works, what happens? What might you do?
You'll give it a go, try different things, see if you can figure it out.
Yeah. You might decide that there's something wrong with the door. You might decide, you might go and get help. You might start blinding that the door doesn't work and you need to get somebody to fix it. It's a lot more difficult to navigate a sliding door when you don't know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
They won.
They did? Okay, can you give me 10 minutes? Please, sweetheart. You can watch television downstairs. That's always a good So, by understanding that our mind self-regulates and that I use this analogy. It's a snow globe, right? When we get upset, pissed off, and angry, this is what happens. And then the mind just settles all on its own again. And then it happens again. And then it just settles again. That's happening all of the time. But if we don't know that, if we look to text and
downstairs?
sorry?
Can you also go downstairs?
No, I'm going to stay up here.
Then I'm scared.
Sweetheart, I'm up here. Can you give me 10 minutes, literally?
I can't go downstairs because I'm scared.
Okay, well then, if you're going to stay up here, then you can stay here. So it updates on its own, and in the sense that it's designed to do that. It's just designed to do that. And if we looked at techniques and tools to make us feel safe, so I'm all for like meditating, I'm all for going to do yoga and all of that. That's not, but it's whether we become dependent on it to think that that's actually where our well-being comes from.
Right.
We become dependent on a routine, and if we don't do it, then we feel insecure that we haven't done it, and then we get addicted to having this routine because we think if we don't have this routine, we're going to feel awful. But in actual fact, that's not true. I'll give you another example. Back in the 1800s, there was an epidemic of childbed fever for mums, women that were dying. And the doctors thought there was a whole list of things why they thought that this was going on for the mums, and why they were dying. I mean, we were talking about drafts. We were talking about, where they were from. They thought it was to do with, well, they had a whole bunch of reasons. And so, of course, they had to combat a whole bunch of reasons, right? So, like drafts, we have to make sure that the room is completely secure. Oh, bad spirits. I have to bring the priest in to make sure that there are no bad spirits. We have to make sure that, they're not from this certain place, because otherwise they will get it. Anyway, there was 21 reasons they thought why these women were getting childbed fever. And Dr. Semmelweis, that was his name, he went off on holiday, and his mate decided to stay back. And his doctor friend was completely and utterly healthy. When he got back from holiday, his colleague had died. And he was like, what's going on? He then had a massive aha moment, and he realized that when he went to just to see what had happened to his colleague, he realized that he'd cut himself on a blade. And that's when he realized, oh, there's something on the blade that infected him. And that was sort of the beginning of germs, the germ theory. Suddenly, all of these reasons why these women were like feeling the way they were, what was happening to them, just fell away. And there was only one reason. This is exactly the same. I'm feeling overwhelmed because of the amount of work I've got to do. And not only that, but I'm feel guilty because of the person that I am, or I'm feeling guilty because of what I've just done, or I'm feeling guilty because of this and that and the other. So we have all of these lists of reasons. But if we can see that the only reason that we're ever feeling a certain way is because of the power of thought, then all of those reasons just dissolve. And guess what happens? We get quieter. And in getting more quiet, we're able to listen to that intelligence that exists more of the time. And we're able to have more insights. And as we have more insights on aha moments, we get more quiet. And the depth of this stillness is infinite. So every time I think I've just got a little bit more quiet and life couldn't get any more rich, it does. And it keeps on doing so. And it keeps on doing so. And it keeps on doing so. Extraordinary.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing insights. Thank you so much, Marina. Really appreciate that. Just check if we've got any more questions. We don't. I think we'll finish off there. That was a great way to end the live interview. Really, really appreciate you coming on. Do you have any final words to give to any of our warrior family parents before we finish today?
So I realized that I didn't really make a distinction between the state of meditation and meditation, but the state of meditation is who we really are. It gets uncovered. It just gets covered because of all of the unhelpful thinking that we have. Meditating is the act of getting to the state of meditation. But I don't know about you, but I'm sure that you get into the state of meditation, or you experience that when you are doing your martial arts. I experience that when I go into nature, or I experience it when I'm cooking, or, you know, we all have our zones of being in the moment. But what I would say is this, to notice when you go into your to-do list, to notice when you go into you're away from the moment, like you're in it and then you're not, you're in it and you're not, and just to notice when you take yourself away from that and then you come back in. And that how somehow you don't need a technique for that it happens automatically. But be kind to yourself, because, you know, we do this without realizing, and it's innocent. It's totally innocent. I don't know anybody that likes to be nasty or mean or unkind. Like, I don't know anybody that does that, likes to be that way. But that's not who you really are. You know, and if you need a reminder and you want to sort of deepen that understanding, then by all means connect with me, reach out, because there's always
for mums to connect with you.
Yeah. So if you want to get into that quieter headspace, if you want to experience your life from a place of more heart and wisdom, if you want to stop reacting, if you want to stop feeling the guilt and the overwhelm and the stress and the struggle, there is a way out. And so reach out to me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, so you can just PM me and say, hey, I listened to the podcast, Sebastian. I also have a Facebook group called the Breathing Space for hardworking mums. So come join that. But yeah, if you feel like you want to accelerate the process, but you also, because it's not one size fits all, it really isn't. And so as a result of that, if you want to talk about your own specific experience, then come and let's connect. Yeah.
Awesome. Marina, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate your time. That was incredibly insightful. I think a lot of mums would have really enjoyed that. So thank you so much.
I hope so. Take care.
Take care.